For years, I thought she was the kind of friend everyone hopes to have. She was there when I got dumped, when I hated my body, when I felt stuck, confused, and behind in life. She listened, comforted, gave advice, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. But the moment I got stronger, calmer, more confident, and less dependent on her, everything changed. She got colder, sharper, less supportive. And that's when I had to face a painful truth. Maybe our friendship only felt close because I was the one falling apart and she was the one standing above the mess. Before we get into this, I want to ask you something, and I really want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever had a friendship that felt loving, supportive, and close, but only when you were struggling? And the moment you started doing better, healing, setting boundaries, building confidence, or simply needing that person less, the whole energy shifted? If that's happened to you, let me know in the comments. And while you're there, tell me where you're watching from. I always love seeing where you all are and how these stories resonate with women in so many different places. Stay with me until the end, because this is one of the most painful truths about friendship. Some people don't just struggle with your growth, they lose their place when you stop being the smaller one. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that almost never gets named properly. It's the heartbreak of realizing that a friendship that once felt deeply loving may only have worked because you were the one in pain. Not because the other person didn't care about you at all. Not because every memory was fake. Not because there was never affection there. But because the structure of the friendship may have depended on you being the one who needed more, struggled more, cried more, doubted yourself more, and reached for the more. And that kind of realization hits differently. Because while you were going through breakups, body image issues, anxiety, confusion, career problems, family mess, loneliness, and self-doubt, they seemed solid, present, almost essential. They gave advice. They reassured you. They looked calm while you were spiraling. They made you feel like they really saw you. And for a long time, you may have believed that this was what a deep friendship looked like. But then you started changing. Maybe you went to therapy. Maybe you stopped begging for crumbs in relationships. Maybe you found a better job. Maybe you started speaking up more. Maybe you stopped apologizing for everything. Maybe you became more grounded, more self-assured, more emotionally independent. And instead of that growth bringing the two of you closer, it created tension. Suddenly, they seemed colder, less excited for you, more sarcastic, more distant. Maybe they started making little comments. Maybe they looked uncomfortable when you sounded confident. Maybe they seemed more engaged when you were hurting and less available when you were okay. And because there wasn't always one giant dramatic moment, it was easy to miss what was really happening. That's what makes this kind of friendship so confusing. It doesn't collapse in one obvious explosion. It starts to shift in small emotional ways. In reduced warmth, in subtle competition, in less joy for your wins, in a strange emotional flatness when you no longer need saving. And the woman living this usually doesn't think, this friendship only worked when I was struggling. She thinks something much more painful. Did I change too much? Did I become arrogant? Did success make me selfish? Am I harder to love now that I need less? And that's why this kind of story matters. Because sometimes the problem isn't that your healing ruined the friendship. Sometimes your healing simply revealed what that friendship had quietly been built on all along. Let's imagine Rachel's story. Rachel and Megan had been best friends since college. They had survived breakups together, bad jobs, bad apartments, bad dates, anxiety spirals, family stress, money problems, and all the messy early adult years. Megan was always the person Rachel called when things fell apart. If Rachel got ghosted, she called Megan. If she hated how she looked, she texted Megan. If she felt behind in life, insecure at work, or ashamed of another bad choice, Megan was the one who would answer. And for a long time, that friendship felt incredibly close. Megan always knew what to say. She'd tell Rachel she deserved better. She'd remind her she was smart. She'd listen for hours. She'd analyze every guy, every mistake, every insecurity, every breakdown. Rachel felt understood by her, held by her, stabilized by her. And because Megan always looked so composed compared to how chaotic Rachel felt, Rachel started seeing her as the strong one, the grounded one, the one who had it together. That became the shape of the friendship. Rachel was the struggling one. Megan was the steady one. Rachel was the one who needed reassurance. Megan was the one who gave it. Then slowly, things started changing. Rachel finally started therapy. Not the kind where you go twice and stop, but real therapy. She began looking at patterns she'd repeated for years. She started setting boundaries. She stopped texting men who treated her badly. She got more disciplined with money. She found a job she actually liked. She stopped calling Megan every time she had a minor emotional crisis. She began making decisions without asking for approval first. It wasn't that Rachel turned into some flawless, hyper-confident new person overnight. She still had hard days. She still felt insecure sometimes. But she was no longer falling apart in the same old ways. She had more self-respect, more clarity, more inner steadiness. And that's when Megan started feeling different. At first, it was subtle. Rachel would share good news, and Megan's reaction felt flatter than expected. When Rachel mentioned that she'd said no to someone who was breadcrumbing her, Megan laughed and said, "Wow, look at you." So, evolved now. When Rachel talked about finally feeling more confident at work, Megan said something like, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Always with a smile. Always light enough to deny. But the warmth that used to be there started feeling thinner. Then the pattern got harder to ignore. Whenever Rachel talked about real progress, Megan seemed disconnected. But if Rachel had a setback, Megan lit up. Not in an obvious, evil way. But emotionally, there was a shift. More engagement. More intensity. More availability. If Rachel said, "I'm actually doing okay," the conversation felt flat. If Rachel said, "I think I'm spiraling again," Megan was suddenly fully present. And Rachel started noticing something she couldn't unsee. Megan seemed more comfortable with the version of her that was confused, rejected, self-doubting, and dependent. One night, that realization hit hard. They were out at dinner with two other friends, and someone made a comment about how different Rachel seemed lately, calmer, more confident, more self-possessed. Megan smiled and said, "Let's enjoy this phase while it lasts." Rachel always finds her way back to chaos. Everybody laughed. Rachel laughed too, because what else was she supposed to do? But that line stayed with her, because it didn't feel like teasing. It felt like exposure, like a quiet reminder of the role she used to play. Like Megan was more emotionally attached to the old version of Rachel than Rachel herself was. After that, Rachel started paying closer attention. When she talked about growth, Megan seemed dismissive. When she talked about healing, Megan seemed skeptical. When she didn't need guidance, Megan seemed irritated. When she made choices on her own, Megan responded with sarcasm. And little by little, Rachel had to face something painful. Maybe the friendship felt so close because she had always been the one beneath. The one who needed more. The one who made Megan feel stronger by comparison. And when Rachel started standing on her own 2 feet, something essential in that friendship stopped working. So, why does this happen? Because not every friendship is built on mature mutuality. Some friendships are built on an unspoken emotional imbalance that feels stable only as long as both people stay in their assigned roles. One person is the one who struggles more. The other is the one who seems stronger. One falls apart. The other gathers the pieces. One asks for reassurance. The other gets to provide it. And when those roles stay fixed for long enough, they can start feeding both people in very different ways. Rachel got comfort, guidance, and a sense of being held. But Megan may have been getting something too, something less obvious and harder to admit, a clear identity inside the relationship. She was the composed one, the wise one, the needed one, the emotionally stronger one, the one with perspective. That role can become deeply rewarding. Not because the person is consciously evil. Not because she wakes up thinking, "I need my friend to stay broken so I can feel powerful." Usually, it's much quieter than that. Much less self-aware, but still very real. As long as Rachel was lost, insecure, and emotionally dependent, the friendship had a clear shape. Megan knew who she was in it. She knew where she stood. She knew what she brought. And maybe, on some level, She felt valuable in a way she didn't fully understand because Rachel was always the one needing something.
But then Rachel changed.
She became more emotionally self-supporting, more grounded, more capable, less chaotic, less available for that old dynamic. And suddenly the friendship no longer positioned Megan in the same way. That shift can be deeply destabilizing for someone who unconsciously built part of her self-worth around being the stronger friend. Because now Rachel wasn't the one always struggling. Now Rachel had clarity. Now Rachel had standards. Now Rachel had choices. Now Rachel didn't need the same emotional rescuing. And that can trigger discomfort, competition, sarcasm, distance, or subtle resentment in a person who cannot tolerate equality as easily as she tolerated imbalance. That's why some friendships get weird when one woman starts healing. Not because healing is selfish, not because confidence is threatening by nature, but because growth rearranges the emotional architecture of the relationship. And if that relationship quietly depended on one person staying smaller, weaker, more lost, or more needy, then healing doesn't just change the mood. It exposes the structure. That's what Rachel started to feel. Megan didn't say, "I don't know who I am if you don't need me." She said things like, "You've changed." She didn't say, "Your confidence makes me uncomfortable." She said, "Wow, somebody thinks she has it all figured out now." She didn't say, "I miss the version of you that made me feel stronger." She said, "You're distant." And because those reactions sound so normal on the surface, they're easy to misread. Rachel could have told herself Megan was just joking, or adjusting, or hurt, or stressed. But the emotional truth underneath those comments was this: the friendship felt less natural to Megan when Rachel was no longer emotionally below her. That is one of the hardest truths to face, because it means some forms of care are not as unconditional as they seemed. It means some people feel deeply connected to your pain, but not nearly as connected to your power. It means they may respond warmly to your collapse, but coldly to your stability. They may know how to love you when you are desperate, but struggle to love you when you are whole. And that doesn't mean there was never affection. It means the affection may have been wrapped inside a dynamic that relied on your fragility. Some people can handle your sadness, but not your self-respect. They can handle your confusion, but not your clarity. They can handle your dependence, but not your freedom. And once you see that, it becomes impossible to unsee. Because now the question is no longer, why is she acting weird? The question becomes, why did this friendship feel more comfortable when I needed less from myself and more from her? And that shoe, Estion, changes everything. Now let's talk about what this does to you on the inside, because that's where the deepest damage happens. When you realize that a friendship seemed to work better when you were struggling, the pain isn't just about losing the friendship. The pain is about what it starts doing to your relationship with your own growth. Rachel began feeling a strange kind of guilt. Every time she felt calmer, more confident, more solid, a small part of her started wondering if she was becoming cold, or arrogant, or self-righteous, or less lovable. Because if the friendship felt easier when she was more broken, then some part of her began to ask the question no woman should ever have to ask. Do I have to become smaller again to keep being loved? That is such a violent question. And yet so many women live inside it without ever saying it out loud. Rachel started toning herself down. She became more careful about how she talked about good things. She minimized her progress. She softened her confidence before it could sound like too much. She hesitated to share wins. She downplayed how stable she felt. Sometimes she even found herself slipping back into old patterns of confusion just to feel close to Megan again. That's what makes this kind of dynamic so dangerous. It doesn't just hurt you. It makes you suspicious of the healthiest parts of yourself. It teaches you that confidence may cost you connection, that self-trust may make you harder to love, that emotional independence may make others uncomfortable, that healing may isolate you. And once those messages start settling in, your growth no longer feels safe. It feels expensive. Rachel also started noticing that her body was tracking the pattern before her mind could fully admit it. She felt more tension before seeing Megan. She felt less free around her. She felt the urge to explain herself more. She noticed that she felt more comfortable being honest about pain than being honest about peace. She realized that she didn't want Megan to see just how okay she was. That is such a heartbreaking thing to notice in yourself. Because friendship should make your wholeness feel welcome. It should not make your healing feel like a threat. And the saddest part is that Rachel didn't want to outgrow Megan. She didn't want distance. She didn't want superiority. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to be able to grow without losing love. But some relationships are organized around a role you were playing, not around who you actually are. And when you stop playing that role, the other person may not know how to stay close to you without losing something in themselves. That is not your fault. You are not selfish for becoming more grounded. You are not arrogant for needing less emotional rescue. You are not cruel for becoming harder to control through pity, advice, or emotional dependency. And you are not too different now just because you no longer live in the same chaos that once kept the friendship feeling familiar. Your body knows when someone feels safer with your wounds than with your strength. Your body knows when your struggle is what made you emotionally digestible to someone else. Your body knows when a bond gets shaky the moment you start standing up straighter. So if you are living through something like this, I want to say this as clearly as I can. You do not need to distrust your own healing just because someone else became uncomfortable with it. And understanding that the other person may be insecure, emotionally dependent on the role she used to play, or quietly lost without that old imbalance does not mean you are required to stay. Compassion does not mean self-abandonment. Understanding does not require self-erasure. And empathy does not mean making yourself smaller again, just so someone else can keep feeling big. You are allowed to grow, even if it rearranges the relationship. PS around you. So, I want to close this episode with one very clear thought. If the friendship only works when you're struggling, then it isn't really working at all. If someone becomes warmer when you're falling apart, more engaged when you're lost, more connected when you're insecure, but colder, sharper, more dismissive, or more distant when you are strong, clear, and grounded, that is something you need to take seriously. Because your healing is not the problem. Your confidence is not the problem. Your self-respect is not the problem. The problem may be that your growth took away a role that made the other person feel secure in the relationship. And I know how painful that is to admit. It hurts because maybe there was real love there. It hurts because maybe that person really did show up for you in some of your darkest moments. It hurts because maybe the friendship holds years of history, inside jokes, loyalty, memories, and comfort. It hurts because maybe you still care about her deeply. But history does not erase structure. Affection does not automatically make a dynamic healthy. Care in one season does not excuse harm in another. And closeness does not mean safety if that closeness depends on you staying emotionally beneath the other person. Sometimes what you call "she changed" is actually the first time you're seeing clearly what condition the friendship had always been built on. And that is devastating because it forces you to rethink not only her, but yourself. It makes you revisit your own healing and ask whether becoming stronger somehow made you less lovable. But I need to say this plainly. You were never meant to be loved only in your lowest form. You were never meant to be endlessly understandable only when you were insecure. You were never meant to be easy to love only when you were doubting yourself. You were never meant to stay small just to keep someone else comfortable. And if your strength creates distance in a friendship, that doesn't automatically mean you became prideful. Sometimes it simply means the relationship was more attached to your fragility than either of you realized. You do not need to become confused again to be close. You do not need to become dependent again to be lovable. You do not need to reopen your wounds just to restore the old intimacy. Because there is a kind of love that only knows how to hold you when you're broken. And there is another kind of love that knows how to honor you when you're becoming whole. The second one is the one you deserve. And as painful as it is to lose someone who once felt essential, there is a deeper loss you have to protect yourself from. Losing your relationship with your own strength because someone else felt safer when you were still hurting. If your autonomy threatens the bond, then maybe the bond was never as healthy as it looked. If your peace creates distance, then maybe the closeness was built on your pain. And if your healing makes someone colder, that does not mean you should go back to being who you were when you were struggling. It means you are finally seeing the friendship in the light of your growth. Now I really want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, when did you first realize that a friendship seemed more comfortable with your pain than with your growth? Was it when you got healthier, more confident, less dependent, more successful, more at peace? Share your story, because your experience might help another woman recognize a pattern she still hasn't been able to name. And if this episode spoke to you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Your story matters here, and so does your growth.